mechanistic quibbles which happened in the opening half of this debate, and we are going to engage all levels anyway. So whether they are going to be harvesting from dead people or from living people, or they are going to die after you harvest your organs, that's not what the debate is about. Let's engage the principles of why we should or should not harvest organs from people, why we should not commodify certain things in human beings. So essentially, what these guys tell you is about how they say this would widen the inequality gap, right? So only the rich can afford this kind of things, and they get it from the poor. As a result of that, this will widen the inequality gap. And they give a very funny example of how it will widen the economic gap in the world too. So global widening of the economic gap. So essentially, the fact that you are getting these things from poor people, which they consent to, because usually most character traits which we find admirable might be found in people who do not have like higher bargaining power in the world and want to have this kind of thing. So if you can find this kind of things, and they can actually use some of the things that they have to get money from these rich people, I do not really understand what they mean by widening the economic gap within, or inequality gap within these individuals. So you go to poor societies, you go to poor communities, and you get things from them. Rich people pay for this kind of things. It does not essentially widen any gap. So they said there's no consent if money is involved. So if we have money being involved in any transaction, consent is initiated. This argument is very, very funny, because all decisions in this world are actually made as a result of incentives. So if you make a decision because you are incentivized to do that, then maybe based on what they are saying, consent is initiated, then we do not do anything based on consent anymore. Go to school because you think you are going to make money from it, then you are not consenting to actually do those acts. Every action we make are as a result of incentivizing individuals to actually make this action. So it's very important also to engage their notion on when you give up these traits, then you do not have them anymore because you are giving up to people, they have harvested this from you and all of that. That's very, very highly mechanistic. But aside from that, let's think of character traits, which Duke explained are things which are developed from society. You can build them, you can improve on them and all of that. So if you give up all these things, the idea that because you are giving up trustworthiness, for example, you can never be trustworthy in your life anymore is one which is very, very funny. When you give up these traits, it does not essentially mean you lose them. They are not medical traits in individuals. They are societal traits which can be developed, which can be gotten from people. And then they also talk about how characteristics and traits are not things that things that actually give people power to oppress. So when you create characteristics and traits for individuals, you give people power to oppress them. Well, talking about how you get some of these things from poor people is very funny. So I'm a rich person, I want to buy a character from a poor person. So buying that character is one which is oppressive, gives me the power to oppress, doesn't essentially make any sense. So let's go to our own points, which we think are very important. So firstly, we think in capitalist society, and we think the whole thing about saying this can happen in conservative society is very funny. It's in a capitalist society where you can actually buy anything, commodify certain things, and exchange money for certain things. So we think in capitalist societies, it is very important to incentivize people to create desirable character traits so that they can sell them. This is very important because these are character traits which are desirable, right? Society has created them as their standard, desirable for societies. So when you put money into these kind of things, and other capitalist things that we do, when you put like high money that you can get from certain things, people are incentivized to actually do these kind of things. But this is more important in this level, because when people are incentivized to get desirable character traits, then we have a better world, right? We have a better society where poor people can actually like have these character traits and sell them, and if rich people who are willing to buy these character traits can actually get them. Now let's see how this is actually present even in the status quo in the first place. In the status quo, we already commodify character traits of individuals and sell them. When you buy books written by Warren Buffett, for example, or you buy books written by big people who think their characters are very important, they write these books and they sell them at very exorbitant rates. This is commodification of their character. So you read these kind of things and you want to copy their characters, you want to emulate them, you want to do these kind of things. This is already a commodification of people's character traits. So we think it's important if there's a technology that exists that you can actually now harvest these things and transfer them. We think it's important that we extend this kind of thing. We commodify other things on other levels too. Education, for example, is something which is commodified also. And commodification is very, very important for present society because commodification ensures that there's incentive for people to actually pursue a certain thing. So in the world where we live in, people do not usually like remove economic angst, for example, from their politics, from their morality and all of that. So if we can introduce a monetary incentive for individuals, then people are more likely to buy into that. And that's why even religious organizations sometimes try to introduce monetary incentives into certain things that they preach, because sometimes they know that people are going to buy into those kind of things. So we live in a world which economic angst cannot be divorced from other things. So essentially, when you create a system that incentivizes good, desirable moral codes and standards for people to buy into, people to develop if they cannot buy into those things, so that they can sell them. We think this is a very admirable thing, and this is one which is very justified to be closing.
If you say that traits can be developed by societal interaction, what sense does it now make people modify traits to develop?
Okay, so if traits can be developed by societal interaction, of course, societal interactions for certain individuals might ensure that they do not develop certain traits. So I come from a society, a home, for example, where my parents do not teach me certain things. I'm not socialized into certain things, and I do not have those traits. For people who have already been socialized into those kind of things and get them and sell them eventually, if they are going to lose them as a result of the fact that they are already socialized into, their process of socialization is still one which follows that pattern, then it's possible, more likely for them to actually get that thing. It's very impossible for you to tell an individual whose process or line of socialization is one which is diametrically opposed to the other one to say, since you can develop, you just go to these places or learn these things and do them. It's better for that person to actually buy them and have those kind of traits. We think incentivization of any good and worthy moral code standard created in society, which betters the society, which improves our living and our lives, is one which is very important, because when you incentivize things, then people actually buy into that. And even in the status quo, more character traits which are desirable are already being incentivized. We incentivize people who are martyrs, who are heroes, who are trustworthy, who are things generally that with life. So why don't we extend this to actually selling these kind of things and having people buy this, so that we can have it on two levels? That first, those who do not have it can actually and have the money, bargaining power to actually get it and buy it. And on second level, those who cannot buy it are actually made to develop this kind of traits, and we have a better society in the end. So there's no question on morality here. Morality does not stand for them if we can say that actually commodifying these things is actually better for human society. We cannot divorce economic situation, economic angst from other aspects and structures of life. So economic situation is very important for us to have an achievement of other things. We think if this stands, we proudly propose from closing government. Thank you.